Hello and welcome. My name is Miki and this is Compendium Trivia, your one-stop shop for fascinating facts from the world of history and geography. Do you love pub quizzes and late-night map explorations? Then you are in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite streaming platform, follow us on social media, and enjoy the show. Imagine Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro, renamed Riviera de Napoleon. Sunseekers snack on freshly baked baguettes with camembert cheese and sip Bordeaux wine under the palm trees. Does it all sound a bit bizarre? Probably, but this is something that actually almost happened. Today, we dive into surprising yet true story of France' attempt to turn Rio de Janeiro into tropical Paris. Everyone knows that Brazil used to be a Portuguese colony, but in fact, France also actively tried to claim this land for itself. Their first attempt came in 1555 when the French Vice Admiral Nicolas Durand de Villagignon, pardon my French if I just butchered his name, led an expedition of 200 colonists to the modern-day Rio de Janeiro area. And you may ask, how did they know where to go? Because this area was not well mapped back then, and it was shortly after America was officially discovered by Europeans at the end of the 15th century. Well, there were some stories that French merchants from Normandy had reached the Brazilian coast shortly after Columbus, or even before him. However, let's be honest, the evidence for that is about as solid as a half-baked baguette. Still, I think there was something to it because the French were confident enough to make establishing a colony an official goal of this expedition. So they probably knew something about those lands. Anyway, apart from poor mapping, there was one other problem. According to the infamous Treaty of Tordesillas from 1494, which was confirmed by the Pope, which was a big thing back then, the coast of Brazil officially belonged to Portugal. So technically, France's little adventure was not exactly legal, but hey, who cares when there's a whole new continent out there to explore, right? Probably this is also why this whole escapade was kept rather hush-hush. The French spread rumors that the voyage wasn't heading to America at all, but rather to the Guinea coast of Africa. And also listen to this. It is said that when the King Henry II put up the funds for the mission, he vaguely stated that the money was for a certain enterprise that we do not want to be specified or clarified. So it sounds like Henry was not the most transparent guy ever when it comes to spending public funds, right? But this also confirms that the whole expedition was quite secretive from the very beginning. So the venture started off well. They managed to establish the colony in Guanabara Bay, where modern-day Rio de Janeiro stands. The trade business with the natives was growing and the future looked bright, especially after more reinforcements and colonists arrived from France. On the flip side, not everything was smooth sailing. There were some internal power struggles and religious disputes between Catholics and Protestants within the colony. And this even led to some colonies to pack up and heading back to Europe. Even the Villagignon himself left, and he left his nephew in charge. So, in general, it was all going well, but soon the young colony attracted the attention of some nasty neighbors. And guess who I'm talking about? The Portuguese, of course, who were already established in Brazil from the early 1500s. And they quickly learned of French presence in South America, and they were definitely not happy about it. So in 1560, they sent troops to deal with the intruders, and they destroyed the rival colony. Some French settlers actually managed to escape and put up the fight, but by 1566, they were completely expelled from the area. And basically, that was the end of the first French colony in Brazil, curiously named France Antarctique. And this surprising name comes from the fact that back then, European geographers often referred to lands in the southern hemisphere as Antarctic lands, and not because they were cold, but simply because they were the opposite of the Arctic in the north. And another interesting fact that the name Arctic itself comes from the Greek Arctos, meaning bear, referring to the constellations of Great Bear and Little Bear, which are visible in the northern sky. So it all may sound a little confusing, perhaps, but yeah, let's be honest, accuracy and geographical labeling wasn't exactly at its peak in the 16th century. Speaking of oddly named colonies, another French venture in Brazil was called Equinoctial France or France Equinoxial. Again, pardon my French. And this name means of equal nights, which makes sense in this case since the colony was established near equator where days and nights are roughly of the same length. And this colony was located in what is now Maranhão state in northern Brazil. And the French settled there in 1612 and named it San Louis in honor of King Louis XIII, although some sources claim it was actually named after Louis IX. Honestly, with so many French kings named Louis, it's hard to know. And what was this colony fate? Well, it played out pretty much the same like with France Antarctique. Things were going smoothly for a couple of years until 1615, when once again those nasty protective Portuguese decided that they were not in the mood for sharing Brazil. So they attacked and expelled the colonists, once again bringing French colonial ambitions in Brazil to an early end. However, the town of San Luis survived. It was rebranded by the Portuguese as São Luís, and it still exists today as the capital of the Maranhão state. So, in a way, the French left their mark on this part of Brazil, just in a more limited way than they had hoped for. You would think that after these defeats, the French would wave the white flag, something they have a reputation for. But not this time. They actually proved to be persistent and they tried again, not technically in Brazil though, but just north of it in what is still to this day the French Guiana. And this attempt, which began in 1624, was a difficult one from the very beginning. They had to restart the colony multiple times due to the combination of tropical diseases, fights with natives, and attacks from Dutch, British, and Portuguese, who all had their colonies nearby. But against all odds, France managed to hold onto this territory for good. And over time, the French Guiana became a place where they used to send exiles and other people who had fallen out of favor with the French state. For example, followers of revolutionary leader Maximilien Robespierre were sent there. Also, Alfred Dreyfus, the victim of the well-known anti-Semitic scandal in the French army at the end of the 19th century, and also many other political opponents. Some of those unfortunate individuals were locked up in the infamous Devil's Island prison, where they face horrible conditions, often malnutrition and tropical diseases, all that stuff. It definitely wasn't the kind of tropical holiday in faraway land for them. Another dark chapter in French Guiana history was slavery. Thousands of Africans were brought to work on plantations there, but also many managed to escape and they formed their own communities similar to the ones they had left behind in Africa before being enslaved. Also, with time, the colony saw waves of immigrants from French colonies in Asia, plus India and China, who established themselves as a merchant class within the local society. So, as you can see, the cultural and ethnical landscape of French Guiana is incredibly diverse and fascinating. To this very day, French Guiana remains a part of France, and despite the fact that it is located in South America, it's also an integral part of the European Union. They even use euro as a currency over there. One good thing about this region is that, unlike to neighboring Brazil, it's not experiencing a rapid deforestation. Still, almost 90% of its territory is covered with the virgin tropical forest. And in fact, it's also home to EU largest national park, the Guyana Amazonian Park, which covers around 40% of its territory. Also, French Guiana is home to EU rocket launch site, making it a valuable asset for the whole European Union. And this is due to its proximity to the equator, which helps to reduce fuel consumption when launching rockets. That's why it is located there. And one other interesting bonus fact, thanks to French Guiana, France's longest border is actually with Brazil in South America. It's around 100 kilometers longer than the French-Spanish border in Europe. So to wrap things up, the French colonization of Brazil didn't go exactly according to plan. There is no tropical Paris, no baguettes in Ipanema, but they didn't leave completely empty-handed either. They still have French Guiana, they have a place to launch rockets from, and they also left their mark in more subtle ways. For example, in place names like the city of San Luis or Ville-Gagnon Island in Rio. And as a side effect, the French also ensured that future history nerds would have something interesting to talk about, right? So, guys, thanks a lot for listening to today's episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like it and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Ciao.